right, let's take a look at a little known tax called the nanny tax and a couple of other little ones. So the nanny tax is designed to make it easier for people who hire a nanny or other household employee to pay the payroll taxes. The nanny tax is basically just your FICA tax, your 7.65% that you're going to have to pay for household employees like maids or sitters and lawn care guys. We don't encounter this too often around here because most people pay people who are self-employed to do it, and so they take care of their own taxes. But so if you pay somebody under $2,100 a year, you don't really need to worry about this whole nanny tax thing. But if you pay them over $2,100 a year, then you treat them like an employee. So you got to file your W-2s and your W-3s, and you got to file a form. Oops. And you'll file a form, a Schedule H, with your 1040. And what this will do is we'll pay the FICA tax for your household employees. Now, if you just have one person and you're only paying them, say, $5,000 a year to watch your kids while you're gone, that's not such a problem. But if you have, if you're wealthy enough to be able to afford, 3 or 4 people who work for you, then you're going to probably want to do just regular payroll for them. If you're paying a lot of payroll, you would definitely want to pay it on a regular basis so you don't have a large tax bill. And in fact, I believe there would be some limits to how much you can actually pay on this before they would expect just regular payroll from you. There are a couple of taxes for high income people. The net investment tax, 3.8%, applies if you're earning over these thresholds here. You just pay a little extra money on your investment income. This is pretty new. It came about with the TCAJ or TACJ. I can't even remember the letters anymore, but it came around in 2018. And you pay it on interest, dividends, rental income. That's a big one, and passive activities. There's the additional Medicare tax of 0.9%. Now remember, Medicare doesn't cap out. If you earn $1 bajillion, you're going to pay that 1.45% if you're an employee, or 2.9% if you're self-employed, on the $1 bajillion. But now if it's over a certain threshold, again, the 200, 250, then you have to pay this extra 9%. Excuse me, this extra 0.9%. If you're an employee, your employer will withhold this extra 0.9% automatically. But if you're self-employed, you're going to have to tack this on yourself. And again, they did away with the marriage penalties, but look at here. These are not double one another. So you kind of have a marriage penalty, and it's not indexed for inflation. This is what got AMT in trouble, is it wasn't indexed for inflation. So it stayed at these limits for so long. And then as incomes grew, more and more people got closer to it. And that's where we're at today. And so now they've created the same problem. They're not indexing these things for inflation. So in 10, 20 years or whatever, when a married filing joint couple earning $250,000 a year is not unheard of, there's going to be more and more people that are subject to these. Some of this might be by design on the part of Congress, but I really think they just ought to have an indexing for everything. If there's a threshold, they really just need to index it for inflation. And so, yeah, like we talked about, if you're an employee and you earn more than $200,000, it will be withheld, and there is no employer match. So this is purely out of your pocket. And of course, like we talked about, it applies to your wages and your self-employment income. So the nanny tax, really briefly, was just a way to pay the payroll taxes for your household employees. And then these two, the net investment income tax, 3.8%. If you're earning over these thresholds, it applies to this income. And then the additional Medicare tax, 0.9% over these thresholds, and applies to this income. Pretty straightforward and simple things. All right, so that wraps up chapter 6, pretty short chapter. Chapter 7, we start talking about some of the good things in the tax code, tax credits. If you remember from that pop quiz we had on day 1 to just kind of see where everybody was on the tax world, one of the questions was, which was better, a tax deduction or a tax credit? Up until now, we've talked mostly about tax deductions. Well, now we're going to start talking about the good ones, the tax credits.